Hello humans, my name's Dael Kingsmill. I'm here to tell you about Hades. Welcome to an overview of the Underworld. I didn't realize how funny that title was until I was talking about it with my mum. Ha! Overview, Underworld, it's hilarious. Laugh. The layout of the Greek mythological underworld is fascinating, and I can't believe I haven't talked about it with you yet, so that's what we're doing today. So let's get to it, the geography of the underworld. First things first, the idea that the underworld was, the underworld that was underground isn't strictly how the story goes across mythology. Of course, we do have plenty of stories in which someone descends into the underworld, Orpheus style, to go and rescue their beloved. Potentially an Egyptian influence that led to the description of Hermes as someone who guides the dead down into Hades' domain. But we also have plenty of citations that suggest that the underworld is in the far west. Clearly a very mysterious place to the ancient Greeks, because that's where they housed so many things that were just mind-boggling. The underworld, that's where the Titan Atlas is holding up the heavens. All sorts of things go on in the west, including dead people. So supposedly if you travel far enough west, you will hit a ring of 5 rivers. These are the 5 rivers of Hades, Hades being the name of both the god who presides over the underworld and the underworld itself. Now, the 5 rivers, let's see if I can remember their names. You've got the Styx, the most famous of all the dead people rivers, and also the river that all the Olympian gods swear oaths upon. If you read the Percy Jackson books, I'm sure you know a thing or two about that. Styx is the river of hatred. Acheron, this is actually the river that Charon the ferryman ferries the dead across in order to get into the underworld. If they can pay up, of course. A dead loved one in ancient Greece required a coin under the tongue to pay the ferryman in order to actually cross over into the underworld once and for all. This is why proper burials were very important. Otherwise you're just stuck on the banks of the river of pain, and I don't want to swim across that, do you? See, so already we're learning things. People often mistake this for the river Styx because that's the river they know about. They think, oh, the ferryman come to ferry me across the river Styx. No, he has not. You don't got nothing to do with this Styx. You all up in the Acheron here. Oh, the river of pain is like, oh, the Acheron. I'm hilarious. Laugh. What else is there? The river Lethe is the next most important, I would say. This was the river of forgetfulness, and it flowed into the meadows of Asphodel, which we'll get to in a minute, and was the main source of water from which the shades of the dead would drink, and so they would forget their lives. I was about to say their living lives, but that's just their lives. The word lives covers that. So pro tip, if you're ever stuck in the underworld, don't drink from the river Lethe. And then you've got the Phlegethon, the river of fire, and the Cocytus, the river of wailing, neither of which play major roles. They're just there being gloomy. So now, there are 3 main locations in the Greek underworld. And when you die and you take your golden tongue coin and you give it to the ferryman and he ferries you over the Acheron, you trot on through the gate guarded by Cerberus, 3-headed dog, very friendly on the way in, but don't try to go back out again. He will tear you to pieces. Then you head on in and you will encounter the 3 judges, Rhadamanthus, Minos, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Achos is the last guy. These are the 3 people who will tell you whether you get to go to good guy dead place, bad guy dead place, or medium guy dead place. Has anyone been watching The Good Place? Because it's incredible. It's almost entirely unfair given that these 3 dudes were not particularly great dudes in their lifetimes. But here they are, judging you. I'm looking at you, Minos. You's a bad dude. There was a 4th dude, I think his name was like Triptolemus, but he's just kind of there in the background hanging out. He's the 4th one that no one mentions. So then you will be judged by these 3 dudes who have nothing really special about them except that Zeus was their dad, but let's be real, who wasn't Zeus the dad of? Like, come on. And you will be sorted, like your very first Hogwarts feast, except you're dead and there's no magic, and things are bad. Almost entirely. Because let's look at our options here. We have Tartarus. Tartarus is not a fun place. This is where you go if you've really pissed off the gods at some point. And it's not really a one-to-one parallel with the Judeo-Christian concept of like hell, but you will be punished here. Tantalus pissed off the gods and now he's stuck like waist deep in a swamp, like a freshwater swamp, and there's some fruit hanging overhead, and anytime he reaches for the fruit to feed himself because he's hungry, the fruit gets pulled up out of the way by the wind. And anytime he leans down to get a drink of fresh water because he's thirsty, the tide will go out and he won't get to drink anything. That sounds like fun. Or Sisyphus, my favorite. I actually genuinely love Sisyphus. He's been given this big ol' heavy boulder and a hill, and he's told that if he can roll the boulder over to the other side of the hill, he'll be free again because he escaped the underworld like 2 or 3 times. He's great. He's my hero. But unlucky for poor Sisyphus, his punishment is that anytime he gets even close, the boulder will slip and roll back down again. It's just too steep and he's gonna have to start all over again and just keeps pushing the boulder up the hill forever. And then you got Ixion and his flame wheel and all them girls with their water jugs with the holes in. Just a lot of punishment to go around. Those are the pits of Tartarus. If you're a medium person, you go to the meadows of Asphodel. I'm already freaked out by this concept because it's basically just like a never-ending prairie. Prairies freak me out. They're basically land oceans. Have you ever noticed that? It's just land all the way to the horizon. That's weird. That's messed up, prairies. You should have mountains or something. Ugh. Prairies. But prairies full of like ghosts of dead people who don't remember who they were. Because they were kind of boring. That's not true. They weren't boring, they just weren't that good and they just weren't that bad. They didn't do anything notably bad and they didn't do anything heroic, and so now they're just here. It's like, oh, you did a great job like baking your whole life. Hope you enjoy drinking from the River Lea and forgetting all your friends and family and wandering around aimlessly forever. A couple of noteworthy people ended up here. Medusa is an interesting one. Heracles ran into her while he was on his 11th task, when he was picking up Cerberus and ended up ripping Theseus's butt off when it was stuck to the chair. Yeah, Heracles ran into Medusa during that whole thing, but she had been drinking from the river and couldn't remember who she was. This is just by one account, I think, though. But a really interesting one, am I right? The great hunter Orion resides in the meadows of Asphodel, in the Dread Prairie, trying to lead a hunt for a ghostly stag for all time. He, I don't think, drank from the river. So that's a place that's meant to be like normal and fine and not freak you out, but I hate it. That sounds like a nightmare. And then we get it. The fields of Elysium. It always turns into Halo. We start out with church choir, end up with Halo. The fields of Elysium are where your heroes and your people who did great stuff go. It's like its own separate, like, walled community, like one of those fancy neighborhoods, you know, where you're not allowed to be a minority for fear of getting shot. So all the heroes wind up here. It's just a nice place. It's described as being really nice. They've got like great fruit and water and stuff. Something that is worth noting is the fact that they have this like pool there where you can go, and if you drink from the water in that pool, unlike at the River of Lea, you get to be reborn into the world and live life again. And you can do this 3 times, I think, and if you manage to live a good life and get into the Elysian fields all 3 times, 4 times, however many lives you ended up having, then you get to live on the Isles of the Blessed. Hell yeah. It's like, this is the fanciest fancy place. The richest of the rich get to hang out here. It's like there's this big lake in the middle of the Elysian fields, and in the lake there's these islands, and only the really great people who lived life a bunch of times and got into Elysium every time get to live there. It's interesting that the only people who get a chance at doing life over are the ones who already did it well. Like, you did great. You want to do it again? Go do it again. But anyone who screwed up, it's like, no, you're stuck with that forever. Even if you're just great baker guy, who's like a nice guy, but like ultimately never saved anyone's babies and wasn't born from Zeus raping someone in the form of a duck. So that's the layout of the underworld. There's some geographical infos and some factoids for y'all. Hope you enjoyed it. It's such an interesting thing to look into. Please go forth and find more tidbits of knowledge and leave them in the comments. In fact, in the comments, because I didn't have time to go into like all the different residents of the underworld, like Hecate or Hypnos and stuff, leave a comment telling me who your favorite inhabitant of the underworld is and why. Apart from that, I do believe that's it. I'm done. I will see you some other oh, no, I didn't say it. It's been so long and finally I can say it again. Apart from that, I do believe that's it. I'm done. Email this to your grandma and I will see you some other time, my friends. Lovely. wish that I could kick my legs high enough for that to actually be impressive.